Hi, welcome to our podcast. I'm Mary Abazia, and I have Sean Wellham and Tom Spitali. What we are doing is, as you know, if you've listened to any of our podcasts, we love to make connections between, how you think about strategy in the real world. And one of the things that is coming to light for us is AI. And so, what we did in our last podcast is we talked about how AI can help in the analysis portion of building your strategy. And there's three parts to it. So, the first is the analysis. And go back and listen to that one if you haven't, because I think there's a couple good tips in there. And then this chunk is about strategy, and a big part of strategy, of course, is the differential advantage. And then in another podcast, what we're going to do is talk about, of course, AI for execution. So analysis, strategy, execution. So this is about the strategy. Tom, do you want to talk more about how we're using it and how other people can consider using AI for strategy?
Yeah, I'm gonna actually start with what it's doing for us personally, the three of us. Historically, the three of us been working together and running workshops for longer, well, a little bit over 2 decades, maybe a little bit, maybe a lot over 2 decades. And the situation has been very similar for us. We've always been, as we've worked with our clients across a lot of different industries, we've never been what you might call domain experts in any one field, although we do a lot of work in medical devices and pharmaceuticals and healthcare fields. But nonetheless, any given day, we might find ourselves working with people that are in the oil and gas services business, or in some software business, or in some healthcare business. And so where we have been is we've existed as tools guides, right? We understand how to apply our tools and ask the right questions and all of that. And we've been really reliant on our clients to bring in the domain knowledge, their experience, and analyze the tools and say, here's what we think we ought to do. In other words, we've had to step back a little bit more from the strategy development piece, um, and than we would like, I think. And what AI is doing for us is allow us to fully participate in it. I mean, our own Scout system is able to process our books and our blogs and all of the things that we've written about, these successes we've written about, and do things like say, hey, Scout, go find us a similar situation to what we're seeing with this particular client. I mean, look at the ability to compete and the stakeholder maps and the segmentation, and tell us what somebody else in this particular situation has done. And that's been really exciting for us. It's allowed us to really suggest a little bit more strongly the direction that our clients should go in. And I think that's been liberating. Mary, you see the same?
Yeah, I really like that because we like to go out and see what other examples are out there, and as you said, have an analogy or a set of examples, because people like it when they look at Ford or they look at Peloton, and so by identifying companies that people can relate to personally and see how, like you said, how they solved a problem, and then bring it back to them to say, okay, now you have a medical device. What are you going to do to borrow from that analogy or that example? And it just connects the dots even cleaner for us. And if we're working in different countries, we may not know all the local examples. And so AI helps us get personal, get local, and very relevant, and help that whole strategy process become much more creative. Sean?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, doesn't it? I mean, it's great for curating our knowledge because we as individuals will be in a workshop and we'll have our own experiences to draw on, and that's part of the experience that you typically get with what we do. But I don't know directly what Mary's been involved with or what Tom's been involved in unless we've worked together. So at the first level, it just curates all of our knowledge into one sort of super brain, so we're always able to access it. But it goes beyond that also, whereas you can limit it to our knowledge, so we can relate very specific stories and examples, but it can also broaden out. You can say, taking the market as a whole, or what other industry has faced a similar challenge, or what other can you find an example of, and so forth. And you can use it as a sort of a really powerful search engine in many ways, because before we would say, losing market share, automotive, US, and you'd be Google and you'd be looking for stories or articles that might resonate if you're doing some research. But with this, you can be very, very specific, and I think that adds another level of depth to the knowledge that we can get. So yeah, it's been liberating in that regard. It's a knowledge hub for all of us.
Well,
We're all connected.
yeah, but and I guess what we've discovered is you still have to do the analysis work. I
Sure.
mean, it'd be so great, I guess, if you could just say, "Hey, go create this strategy for me." Um, the three of us wouldn't be doing what we were doing, and you out there listening probably wouldn't be doing what you're doing. We're paid to really find the nuances and the specifics of a situation, and I guess what we're finding is, yeah, you can go out and you can generally ask AI to find you analogous situations like, I'm in this industry and I'm losing share to a particular competitor. But what we're finding is when you really have the specifics of, like, what stakeholders are you really looking at, right? From the analysis phase, what
Yeah.
segments are you looking at? What are their specific needs of this segment? I mean, AI can help you with all that, but you've got to have the process, the background, the level of specificity, to be able to take advantage of all this. But if you do that work, as Sean said, as Mary said, if you're working with us, you have the benefit of all of our experience and everything else that's going on in the world. If you're not working with us, if you've gotten very specific about your targets, their needs, and where you need to get better, you can
Yeah.
find very, very specific analogies and perhaps, as Mary said, even in your own market, in your
Yeah,
own world.
I want to share another way that I'm using it a lot is when we work with clients, we we're working together and we think that we find something that differentiates them, some claims that they can make, even some type of I hate to say a slogan, but a way to position themselves in the market. And what we've been doing then is then going to AI and say, in this market space, will this differentiate them, or how well will it differentiate them? And who may, also claim it? So we can see how we call it the scratch and sniff test. How unique is it if you take that person, that company's name off and you put another one on? So it's not perfect, but it certainly is a nice way to kind of throw it against the wall and say, okay, is this differentiated enough? And will it help them in those specific target markets that they're considering?
And I think building what Tom said as well, Mary, this idea that it needs to be interpreted by an experienced human is still very true, right? I mean, that's something we should never forget. For all the wonders that AI presents to us, it is at some level it lacks nuance, experience, and context. So when we use it, it's to shortcut, if you like, the brainstorming phase of just
Mm.
give me some ideas. And then when you say, oh, now hang on, with that's triggered a memory about this, and we could do this. And if it's within your own business, oh, we did 2 years ago, we tried that, and I remember this happened, and so on and so on. And it's a way of sparking innovation. Sometimes it won't give you the answer, but it will certainly give you the road to which you should head down. And if you think about differentiation more generally, we think of it with three main levers to pull. Do something better than you're currently doing it, reorient the customer around what's important to them, and maybe add a benefit that no one else is considering at the moment. You can also use AI to brainstorm a starter list of those. I mean, some of them will be quite funny and pointless, but you can say, what new benefits could I add to the customer in this scenario? And it will give you at least food for thought. And that's really what it excels at, is prompts.
It really does. And it does not know what your company's capabilities to fulfill on those ideas are, right? So, it gives you these ideas, and our experience is that these ideas are, yes, some of the things that we would have thought of anyway, but also other things that we wouldn't have thought of. And then it's up to us to figure out which ones are feasible, doable, how much we're willing to invest in those particular ideas. It becomes like a dialogue with a really, really, super intelligent person that has access to all the knowledge of the world. But
Or
still,
a really annoying person who doesn't know what they should say. If you remember, there's a concept in innovation that the more you know, the less innovative you can be. They call it educated incapacity. You know so much about your business or market, you lack the ability to see anything different.
Mm.
Whereas an AI forms that role of the sort of smart person in the room saying, why don't you do this? Why do you do that? How come this isn't done in this industry? And sometimes those can be they can shake you up. They can make you think like, yeah, why is that? It also forces you, because it has no filter and it has no real context or depth of knowledge. It makes all sorts of suggestions, and sometimes the left field ones can be the spark for something. We always like to set something in motion, and it's great for those little ignition moments of thinking.
Wow, Sean, I like your ignition idea.
Thank you.
I wanted to give an example of where we used AI very specifically in an area that we didn't know very well. And that was launching our book. We wrote our second book, and we used AI to help in different ways that were very appropriate. And then we said, help us create a strategy for launching our book. And it was I mean, it was amazing how many good off the wall ideas that it came up with that, then allowed us to sit down and really have a healthy brainstorming session to say, okay, well, that might be a little bit too far out. And boy, we really would have missed that one, talking to certain KOLs, to help us with the book. So in a very tangible way, it can, like you guys have both said, if you prompt it and then work with it, it's amazing that areas that you may not, like, you have to write a press release for something, you may not know how to do that very well.
Yeah.
That's, those types of things that you're trying to develop will help.
Yep. I think the what's I'm going to go back to a little bit of discussing how we're using it in our Scout system. I started that way, and I guess I'm sort of ending that way. But we're just all very excited about Scout and how we're using it. But Sean had mentioned our three different strategies, our three different differential advantage strategy categories. And oftentimes what happens is, we spend a lot of time on the analysis phase of our workshops. When it gets time to do the strategy, time is getting short in the workshop. And sometimes we don't get as, without using AI, we didn't get enough time to really think through all three categories. People tend to kind of glom onto one of those three categories and kind of dive deep in there. And it works really, really well. But what's really great about how we're using Scout is we can say to it, based on all of our blogs, all of our books, everything that we've written about, everything that you have, all the knowledge you have available, give us a strategy in each of those three categories to think about and to brainstorm against, as Mary said we did with our book. And what we also say, name the strategy after the company that embodies the strategy. So it gives people kind of an anchor, right? This is the Hyundai strategy. This is the Nike strategy. And what we're finding is that people are then able to examine all three categories, right? Just similar tactics, reorient the customer, change the rules, really innovative stuff. And we're finding that they're piecing together a unique and bespoke strategy from the elements of those three categories that make sense. So we're able to do more there than we ever have. And it's really exciting.
So we hope that you have a couple of ideas that you can try with AI when you're developing your strategy. And of course, thank you. Send us any of your learnings or your challenges that you ended up facing, because we're all kind of figuring this out together. So thank you.
Thanks.